think this one's gonna be pretty bleak. That's a promise and a threat to myself, rotting on my TBR for so long. I don't know why the frick I always buy short story collections. He sounds like he sucks. Probably not gonna be good. Still gonna read it. Yeah, I wanna read it. And then when the opportunity comes for me to read it, I'm like, I would rather read literally anything else. Hi, I'm Sam. There's quite literally no one asking me to do this, but it's been a really long time since I've updated you guys on my physical TBR, so I thought today we could go over my TBR cart and all of the books I own that I have not yet read. So these are in no particular order, so yeah, I'm just gonna kind of grab at random and we'll go from there. So I guess I'll start with this one, Mimi's Tales of Terror by Junji Ito. This is the most recent addition to my physical TBR. This is his newest release. I think it just came out like a week or so ago, but just another short story anthology. This probably won't stay on my TBR for too long because I'll probably just get to it sooner rather than later. I guess next I'll also talk about another Junji Ito short story collection. This is his Soichi stories. I got this a couple months ago, still have not yet read it, but again, Junji Ito doesn't really stay on my TBR for too long because I usually just read his stuff as soon as I get it. Next is Hellbent by Leigh Bardugo. This is the sequel to her book Ninth House. I haven't felt the pull to go back into like dark academia, but I'm hoping to get to this one pretty soon. We also have The Pisces by Melissa Broder. I know I like Melissa Broder's writing. This is one of those that's been on my TBR for kind of a long time, and I don't know why I haven't made it more of a priority, but for whatever reason, whenever I look at my cart, The Pisces isn't one that really feels like it's pulling me to read it, but I definitely do want to read it eventually. I just gotta make it happen. Next is another one that also I've had on my TBR for a while, Confessions by Kanae Minato, translated by Steven Snyder. This is supposed to be really good, like psychological thriller, kind of disturbing Japanese story. It has kind of like all the buzzwords that I normally look for, so I don't know, I really just need to make this a priority and read it. Transorbital by Nathan Singer is a pretty recent acquisition. This is like an indie horror. It's pretty short, so I could definitely see myself getting to this pretty soon. I think this is mostly just about this doctor that specializes in lobotomies, traveling across the United States, getting up to some shenanigans. Several people are typing is sort of a corporate America satire, like dark comedy. And I think this is sort of Kafka-esque, like the Metamorphosis, but rather than this main character waking up as a giant beetle, he instead wakes up and realizes that he is stuck inside Slack, which is like a messaging program that a lot of corporations and employers use. I personally don't use Slack, so maybe a lot of this humor is going to be lost on me, but it's told all through Slack messages and it's supposed to be pretty funny. Looking Glass Sound by Catriona is a thriller that my partner picked up for me just based on the synopsis. I think this is going to be a pretty standard thriller. There's like a writer in this seaside town writing a mystery while also like unraveling a mystery and that kind of deal. So I've enjoyed what I've read of Catriona Ward in the past, so I'm hoping that this will be good as well, but as you can see, I still have not even taken the plastic off, so still firmly on the TBR. Next is Imaginary Friend by Stephen Chbosky. I've never read any of his books. I know people love The Perks of Being a Wallflower. Never read it. I feel like the size of this is really what's been the biggest hindrance to me starting this. But this is supposed to be about this young kid who they move to a new town and he has an imaginary friend and spooky shit happens. Now You're One of Us by Asa Nonami is supposed to be a pretty disturbing read, I think. This woman is married into this family in Japan. When she moves into the household, things start to seem a little culty. So I think this is supposed to be really good. Really want to get to it. Another one that's supposed to be really disturbing is Smithy by Amanda Desiree. So this is about these scientists that are experimenting on these chimps. As they're teaching the chimpanzees American Sign Language, they start signing and like communicating to the scientists these like spectral cosmic messages. So I think it's gonna have many different layers of horror. Another horror that I have is Found by T. Rigney, another short indie horror. This is about a young kid dealing with just like the day-to-day of how awful it is to be a kid. And then he discovers that his estranged older brother is collecting severed heads in his bedroom closet. So that sounds so ridiculous to me. So I'm assuming this is going to be like horror, but also maybe a little bit satire as well. 7 Empty Houses by Samantha Schweblin and translated by Megan McDowell. The biggest thing that's been holding me back on getting this done is just that it's a collection of stories. I think that the stories are connected, but yeah, man, it just takes a lot for me to pick up a short story collection or a work that isn't just a novel or or something that isn't as disjointed. But I really liked what I've read of Samantha Schweblin so far, so I really do want to get to this soon. Another short story collection, Glassy Burning Floor of Hell by Brian Evenson. I feel like this was on my physical TBR video like way back when I first started my YouTube channel. So this one I'm like feeling a little bit guilty that I haven't gotten to this one yet because it's just been like rotting on my TBR for so long. But again, stories, man, they just take so much out of me. So I really want to read more Brian Evenson. I really want to get to this, guys. I really do. The Hellbound is a webtoon. It started out on the app Webtoon, and then it was obviously given a physical release. In this universe, people are informed when they're going to hell, and then they get this like countdown, and then when the countdown reaches 0, these like demonic entities come and drag them physically to hell. So a lot of really cool imagery that I've seen in this so far, so I'm excited to get to this. The Jungle by Upton Sinclair. This is a classic that I really want to read, so that's why I purchased this, but also because this cover is just amazing and super gross. So this is mostly about these working class people who are working in a slaughterhouse, and I think the horror of it, or like the disturbing part of it, is just going to be not only like probably the really unsafe and inhumane conditions for the animals, but also the unsafe and inhumane conditions for the people working there. So definitely a classic I want to get to. Another Way to Fall by Brian Evenson and Paul Tremblay. So this is 2 short novels that I believe that they wrote together, or sort of like maybe they independently wrote their own story, but they collaborated quite a bit. I'm not too sure, but again, I've enjoyed some of what I've read of Paul Tremblay, and I've enjoyed what I've read of Brian Evenson, so I'm hoping that this is a spooky, scary time. Oh Honey by Emily R. Austin is about this telemarketer who she calls people and uses different names. At first it seems like she's calling people at random, like telemarketers do, but it seems like as the story progresses, she's not calling people at random, and she has a plan, and she's got like a dark past. So I think that this is supposed to be dark and funny, so excited to read it. Night Film by Marisha Pessl is another one that's just been rotting on my TBR. I'm so sure I'll like it, but it's just, I don't know. It's just one of those where I'm like, yeah, I want to read it, and then when the opportunity comes for me to read it, I'm like, I would rather read literally anything else. I really do want to get to it though. But this is like a murder mystery, family drama, horror movie type thing. There's various forms of media all throughout the book as well, in addition to the story. So I've heard really good things about this one, but I just haven't gotten to it yet. The Drifting Classroom by Kazuo Umez. So I'm really trying to work my way through some of the older horror manga, and Kazuo Umez is obviously an author who is like a horror manga titan, so I really want to consume more of his work, and yeah, I'll definitely get to The Drifting Classroom eventually. Bad Man by Dathan Auerbach. I think I mostly just picked this up because I really liked Pen Pal by him. I'm really hoping that this is going to have that same sort of creepypasta horror flavor. So I think this is about a guy whose younger brother disappears from a grocery store when he's supposed to be watching him, and then he years later starts working at the grocery store to try to unravel the mystery of what happened to his brother. So I think this will be good, but it's sort of just been gathering dust on my TBR card. The Discomfort of Evening by Marieke Lucas Rijneveld, translated by Michelle Hutchison. This is also supposed to be really disturbing, and it won the 2020 International Booker Prize. I think it's like this family that's pretty secluded, and the parents start to lose their grip on reality, or, you know, kind of maybe succumb to mental illness, and the children are really left to their own devices, and they become really fascinated with death. And I think that they start to engaging in these really disturbing rituals and fantasies. So I've heard a lot of people say that this is icky and disturbing, so I hope I like it. Yolk by Mary H.K. Choi is not one that I typically would pick up. This is like YA drama, I guess, about 2 sisters who were estranged, and then one of them is diagnosed with cancer, and that sort of like brings them back together. So I think this is going to be really sad. I like know I'm gonna scream cry the whole time. Yeah, I guess I'll just have to wait until I need a good cry. Don't Look Now and Other Stories by Daphne du Maurier. I really liked Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. Again, short stories. I don't know why the frick I always buy short story collections, but this cover is just too good. It was too good to pass up. So I figure I'll give her a shot. Mother for Dinner by Shalom Oslander is another one I feel like I've talked about a lot, and like constantly am saying I want to read it, but I do. I promise I do. This is about a family of cannibal Americans. So this is like speculative fiction wherein cannibalism is not illegal. The sort of matriarch of this family dies, and her dying wish is for her family to eat her. I think we're following this family as they're sort of like grappling with the implications of that, and grief and family drama, that kind of thing. So I really am looking forward to this. The Other by Thomas Tyron was one that I also kind of just bought spontaneously. I think this is going to be about two young brothers growing up together, and one is displaying psychopathic tendencies and behaviors while the other one is not. So I think we're going to be following them as they grow up together and potentially start to diverge as the one starts to become more and more violent. Hopefully it's good. PTSD Radio, Omnibus Volume 3. I believe this is the final omnibus. So maybe the reason I haven't picked this one up yet is because I just don't want it to end. But I really love this series. It's a collection of short stories based on Japanese folk horror tales and Japanese yokai and monsters. So I know I'm gonna like this pretty much. So yeah, I think I just don't want it to end. But I will definitely read this one pretty soon. Egregore by Spencer Weidman. Definitely got pulled in by this cover. This cover do be serving. I think this is like family drama where patriarch is diagnosed with cancer, but he wants to build this perfect home for his family. So I think it's sort of like grieving having this terminal illness and kind of being driven insane by grief. And I think that that's going to sort of manifest in his building of this house. So I'm imagining that this is going to be kind of like if we had a peek inside the mind of the person who maybe built Hill House that Shirley Jackson wrote about. I really hope that that's the case because that sounds freaking cool. I'll let you know. Lullabies for Little Criminals by Heather O'Neill. I think this is going to be kind of a bummer too, like really disturbing. I think we're really following this 13-year-old girl as she is kind of pulled through life and neglected by her father and having to survive pretty much on her own from a really young age. So I think this one's going to be pretty bleak. Cursed Bunny by Bora Chung. Again, short stories. I don't know why I do this to myself, but I want to give it a chance because I've heard really good things about it. I hope I'll like it. I don't know. Short stories kill me, but this cover is really cool. I hope that I like it. Out by Natsuo Karino. Another one I'm like almost 100% positive I'll like. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. And it's mostly because the text is like really small and it's pretty long. But this is like a high octane thriller about this woman who I think just gets fed up and kills her husband and then asks her female coworkers to help bury the body. So love that aspect of it. I love a vindictive character. I love women supporting women. So I know I'll like it. I just gotta freaking read it. Another classic I really want to read is The Master and Margarita. I had tried starting this on audiobook and then I was like, what in the world is happening? So I think having a physical copy will serve me better because then if I start to get confused, I can flip back more easily and review. This is like political and religious satire set in Soviet Moscow. So definitely a little bit intimidated, but I am very intrigued by a book that is going to have a character that's the devil and Jesus Christ potentially interacting in like a satirical way. So I'm looking forward to it, cautiously optimistic. The Sluts by Dennis Cooper is another one that I have been saying I'm going to read for so long. Have not yet. This is about escorts hired from this website, and I think that a lot of the narrative is driven through this website where people can hire the escorts or leave reviews or like message them. So I think we're gonna get an inside scoop into some of these escorts' lives. Made for Love by Alyssa Nutting. I think this one's gonna be pretty funny. This is about a woman named Hazel who is forced to move in with her dad, who lives in a trailer park with his girlfriend who is a sex doll, because her rich ex-fiance or ex-husband was trying to control her. He wanted to like link their brains and their consciousness with brain chips or something like that. So he sounds like he sucks. I think the story is going to be like her struggling with living with her dad and his sex doll, but then also potentially being pursued by her extremely controlling and abusive ex-husband. So I'll let you know. String Follow by Simon Jacobs is a horror. I think this is going to be like suburban gothic. We're following this group of friends and there's this sort of like unnamed, unknowable force that's terrorizing them. I don't really know. The synopsis doesn't really give a ton away, but the cover's pretty cool. It is kind of long though, so it's like, man, Simon Jacobs. But I want to read it and I'll let you know if it's worth it. You've Lost a Lot of Blood by Eric LaRocca. Eric LaRocca, very hit or miss for me. Honestly, most of what I read from him I haven't enjoyed, but when I do enjoy it, I really enjoy it. So I'm hoping You've Lost a Lot of Blood is one where I really enjoy it. There's no synopsis for this. There's just like a very Eric LaRocca blurb on the back. Each precious thing I show you in this book is a holy relic from the night we both perished, the night when I combed you from my hair and watered the moon with your blood. Sounds pretty cool. I'll let you know. Tinfoil Butterfly by Rachel Eve Moulton. I've seen this on a lot of people's best books of the year wrap-ups in the last few years. This is about a woman named Emma who's hitchhiking. She's trying to escape her violent past, and then she runs into this child who's wearing a tinfoil mask. And I think that they kind of team up. There's probably going to be some elements of like found family, but also the perils of this unlikely duo trying to survive as they travel across the United States and escape their potentially violent pasts together. The Lonely by Ainslie Hogarth. This one's kind of silly goofy. I honestly don't know if this is young adult or adult, but I loved Mother Thing by her, so I really want to read more by her. This is about a woman who struggles with the lonely, which is a debilitating condition that affects the women in her family, that makes them sad and makes them lie. So yeah, I think we're following her struggling with this affliction. It sounds like it's going to be kind of funny, so I'm looking forward to that. Disturbance by Jenna Clake was also a really impulsive buy, but I liked this cover and I liked the spine. This is about a woman who spies on her neighbors and they're performing some sort of like occult ritual, and then she tries to perform an occult ritual just based on the spying that she did to like hex her ex-boyfriend, and then I think that causes him and his spirit to like haunt her or something. I don't really have a good gauge of what this is going to be like, more of a thriller or if it's going to be kind of satirical and funny and tongue-in-cheek, but either way I'm intrigued. Mouthful of Birds by Samantha Schweblin. Again, another freaking short story collection by Samantha Schweblin. I don't know why I would buy another one when I haven't yet read the first one I purchased, but again, Samantha Schweblin is just a bomb-ass writer, so I want to read more of her stuff. I'm gonna read it though, I promise. That's a promise and a threat to myself. In the House in the Dark of the Woods by Laird Hunt. This is gonna be like old-timey village horror. We're in colonial America. Women who are seeking freedom and sovereignty at the price of damnation, if you catch my drift. Pretty much if I hear that a book has like a whisper of potential witchery happening, I'm gonna want to read it, so we'll see if it's good. Tell Me I'm Worthless by Alison Rumfitt. Again, another one that I've been really wanting to read for a long time. I think this is about a group of friends who experience this horrifying event in this haunted house when they are younger, and then now that they are older, part of the group tries to go back to the house to try to figure out what happened that night. I've heard this is pretty spooky, so I'm hoping that that is the case. Shit Cassandra Saw by Gwen E. Kirby. I think this was also on my last physical TBR video, so like I'm a little embarrassed, but haven't gotten to it yet. This cover is really cool. Short stories. Supposed to be Margaret Atwood meets Buffy. Just girls being gals, I think. Hope it's good. Bonding by Maggie Sievert. I couldn't tell you what this is about. Like, I couldn't even guess, and there's no synopsis. There's not even like any hints. So all I can go on is just like, oh, the inside text looks really cool, and there's like a spooky skeleton on the front, so it's probably gonna be spooky, but whoever recommended this to me, I trust you, so I hope I like it too. The Exorcist by William Peter Blatty. This is one where I can't remember if I've read it. I've watched the movie so many times, and I've also listened to like the theatrical performance of it, which I don't think was the audiobook, but either way, I'm very familiar with this story, and I think it would be cool to read a physical copy either way, so it's on my list. Next is like a series. I freaking love the movie 30 Days of Night. It's probably my favorite vampire movie. I think this is the only instance where I've actually been like, oh, vampires are scary, you know? So this is the novelization of the film, so probably not gonna be good. Still gonna read it. I think 30 Days of Night started out originally as a comic series, and then there were also these novel companions. So I don't remember which came first, but I read one of these when I was in like high school, and I actually really enjoyed it. So I figured I'd give the whole series a chance, but probably not going to be like the most groundbreaking literature I've ever read, but it'll be fun. Next is another short story collection, but this one I'm actually looking forward to more than I usually am for short story collections, because that is Poking Holes by Juan Valencia. So Juan Valencia is a booktuber. He speaks a lot about literature in general, but oftentimes horror and the more unsavory side of literature. So I'm really looking forward to reading some of his work, and I think all these stories are supposed to be really disturbing, so excited to get into this. Hangs a Man by Shirley Jackson. I really liked The Haunting of Hill House by her, obviously. This one is more dark academia, I think. So we have this 17-year-old Natalie who becomes infatuated with a married professor, and I think as the novel progresses, she like starts to lose her grip on reality, and the line between reality and her imagination starts to blur in probably a dangerous way. Another Eric LaRocca, They Were Here Before Us. This is a novella in pieces. He always has really great artwork, and I gotta admit, he does have a way with words. So even if the story maybe isn't my favorite, it's still always a treat to read his writing. What Mad Universe by Frederick Brown. This was an impulsive buy from Half Price Books because this cover was just so cool looking. So this is very sci-fi, I think. This guy's like in a town for work, and then this spaceship crashes near where he is, and then he passes out, and when he wakes up, I think he's like this wolf man, and the whole town is like thrown into chaos because the other people have also been affected by the crash. So I think this is gonna be like sci-fi comedy. There's a chance I could enjoy it, but I'm usually not a huge sci-fi girly. We'll keep you posted. Okay, we're down to the last two. Hurricane Season by Fernanda Melchor, translated by Sophie Hughes. We have an unreliable narrator. The corpse of the witch is found by the village, so they start investigating her murder. I think this is gonna be like a damned village where everyone is a really bad person and does bad things. So those are the kind of people I like to read about, so I'm very much looking forward to that. And last but not least, another one that's been rotting on my TBR for so long. And I've started this one before and then like set it down a couple times, but I really do want to get back to it. Animal by Lisa Taddeo. We have like an unhinged female moving through the world. She's depraved. She doesn't give a crap about anyone else but her type deal. She moves to Los Angeles, and I think Los Angeles is where she grew up, and upon her return, she starts to figure out this horrific event that happened to her there as a child. So I think it's gonna be some messed up lady trying to navigate her trauma. Hopefully it's good. That was my physical TBR. I really don't like my physical TBR to be larger than what can fit in the TBR cart, so I'm in okay shape for now, but it would be nice to get some of these knocked out at least before the end of the year. So you can like this video if you want, comment, subscribe if you want. I would love to have you. And if you have read any of these, let me know. Which of these should I really prioritize? Which should be at the top of my list? Which one should I be starting today? Would love to hear from you. Okay. Love you. Bye.